I hope everyone is fine. So, for those who don't know me, I'm Stephen Garisher. I'm currently Vice President of the Southern California Horticultural Society. And I was dragged into making a few comments. Actually, they wanted me to MC this entire event, but I think I'm just going to give you a brief introduction. So for more than 60 years now, the Southern California Horticultural Society has been awarding, or actually presenting the Horticulturist of the Year award to the deserving recipients. And the list of former awardees is really quite something to read. It's kind of a veritable who's who of horticulture in California, particularly Southern California. And in looking over the list, it actually struck me that I really do need to do a little bit of research. I know most of the names on that list, but there are some that I find myself, I'm now intrigued. I need to find out who they actually were and why the award was given. I actually don't know who some of them are, so I need to do a little bit of research. What I did see, one thing that struck me was that the first dinner, the first annual dinner, awards dinner that they had was back in 1963. And the reason that kind of struck me was I was born that year. So it's been going on a long time. So we honor people who work and make their living in the world of horticulture and make contributions to that world. Whether they're educators, plant specialists, nurserymen, botanists. We've honored a family of nurserymen, the Nuccio family, made numerous contributions. So as I said, the list is really quite something. It's kind of inspirational to look back on all of this. There are currently, if my count is right, there are currently 4 awardees who are serving on the board of the Southern California Horticultural Society. And actually 2 of them will be presenting tonight. I hope they will, when they introduce themselves, I hope they will let you know that they are former awardees. So all of these people share in the distinction of having either educated or inspired us or provided us with plants or left behind incredible designs or just enrich the world of horticulture for all of those of us who find ourselves under the spell of plants and gardening and all of the rest that world entails. So they make that world a better place and the world around us a better place. So that world changed drastically this year with COVID. And unfortunately, those changes have us missing that personal connection that we got through the meetings. And I'm feeling that even more so right now with the absence of the annual dinner and all of the fuss that went with that. It's still something that I'm missing terribly. I'm missing seeing all of your faces. And when I do see the few of you I've seen, I'm missing seeing, more than just that. So that feeling that we're missing something, I think it's interesting that that's probably part of what brought up when we had to make the official decision not to have the dinner. It was something that couldn't be helped, of course. It wasn't like the decision was difficult, but it brought up difficult things to think about. And the idea was floated to honor some people posthumously, and it just seemed the perfect fit for the idea that the Horticulturist of the Year embodies. So I think that this was just a brilliant idea for using the technology and using the lack of having an annual dinner to to make the best of all possible worlds. So really another thing I'm missing too is even the silliness around the silent auction. For those of you who don't know, I was the collection point for everything, but I do have a daily reminder. I'm still tripping over boxes of stuff that were donated late last year and early this year. So I know that the auction didn't happen because some of it's in my basement. So with all of that, I think we should just make the best of everything and appreciate those who've gone before, all of those we've honored before, and those we're bringing into that sphere tonight. So with that, I'll give you back to Erin.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Stephen. I'm going to bring Carol Bornstein up for our first presentation. So give me one moment. And Stephen, thanks again for all of your words. I'm going to send you to the attendees, okay?
Hello.
Hi, Carol.
So, am I ready to go here?
You are all set.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. Good evening. I am going to immediately start by sharing my screen. So give me a second to do that. Get that set up for you. I'm going to be sharing observations about Dara Emery. So why is this not opening? Oh, there we go. Okay. Beautiful. And I'm also going to just, you don't really need to look at me. Erin, now that I've gone into my screen share, can you just
Yep, we are seeing
minimize me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You don't need to see me. You can just, if you want to take me off the video. Either way, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to go ahead and talk about Dara now. So
yeah, go for it.
It's my distinct honor and pleasure to talk about a man who was very influential to me in my career. When I started out in my work at the Santa Barbara Botanic Garden, oh my God, 1981, however many years ago that was. Dara had already been at the Santa Barbara Botanic Garden for well over 30 years. He had started there, as you can see from this introductory image. In 1955, he had a long and very influential career at SBBG and well beyond, very highly regarded for the many contributions that he has made to the world of California native plant horticulture, inspiring so very many people, either directly or indirectly, through the work that he did while he was the horticulturist and plant breeder at the Botanic Garden. He wore many, many hats. You noticed he was wearing a hat in that first image, and you'll see through these images that follow quite a few other styles that he fashioned during his years at the garden. First and foremost, maybe was his role as a teacher. He shared his knowledge very freely about California native plants, depicted here in a couple images from the Botanic Garden's archives of a plant propagation class, and also a class on how to use native plants in the garden. And he conducted these and other classes for most of his time at SBBG. And when I arrived in 1981, after shadowing him through a couple of these classes, I ended up taking over and taking the reins and teaching these classes while he focused his work on plant breeding, which I'll be talking about very shortly. He was one of the primary plant collectors for the garden during his time, going out into the field on numerous collecting trips over the years, gathering seeds as well as cuttings, sometimes root divisions of things that we wanted to add to the living collections. This picture, I think, actually is him in the Botanic Garden. I don't remember him going out into the field, at least when I was on trips with him, wearing his apron, but maybe. Anyway, and there's his sturdy little pith helmet. Looks like he's gathering cuttings here from a ceanothus. All of which would be brought back to the Botanic Garden and propagated at the nursery. And right here, he's winnowing some chaff to get at the seeds. And on the left, potting up either cutting or seed grown plants into gallon cans. And that was back in the day, even though this picture is 1971, that's the kind of containers that we actually were using before plastic became so ubiquitous. When I first arrived, I remember punching holes in the bottom of those cans with a can opener so that to provide drainage. And sometimes we had to actually use a special metal apparatus, I can't remember the name of it, to slice open the sides to get the plants out at planting time. Dar was very much an innovator during his time at the Botanic Garden. One of the things that he was instrumental in establishing were the very popular fall plant sales. This is Dara. I don't know if you can see my pointer, but here he is on the lower left wearing that pith helmet at one of the very first plant sales back in 1962 here in the courtyard at the garden. And then again, with a different hat in 1990. He realized that propagating plants for the living collections, there were often some surplus plants that needed a home, and he realized that there was a market for these plants because back in the early 60s, there were very, very few nurseries that were making California native plants available in any significant numbers. And so that became the inspiration for launching these plant sales that are extremely popular. And of course, not just at SBBG, but all across the state now by various botanic gardens and native plant societies. And at the same time, he also, because of the popularity of his propagation classes and the volunteers who love to do that kind of work, he helped to establish the Garden Growers Retail Nursery, which initially, and for its first several years, was run entirely by volunteers, open just a couple of days a week, and eventually they got to be, because they were so popular, opened 7 days a week all year long with help from staff. The other thing that I noted here on this page, the plant introduction program, talk about that just in a little bit. For people who never met Dara in person, they may know him through this publication, which the Botanic Garden published back in 1988. That was the first edition. And recently they just reprinted it. So it is still very much in print and still quite popular. Don't know how many thousands of copies have sold over the years, but it is the Bible to learn about all the details associated with propagating California native plants. And there are extensive lists of many, many different species and what their seed germination requirements are. It's an invaluable resource. I reached out to a number of colleagues who I knew had close friendships and relationships with Dara over the years, people who he mentored or who he influenced. And the first one that you can see quoted here is Mike Evans, the founder of Tree of Life Nursery down in San Juan Capistrano. And he said that Dara was an inspiration, so kind and always willing to share his vast knowledge about native plants. Most fitting that almost 30 years after his passing, he is honored and a whole new generation of horticulturists will learn of him through this award. And the photo is of the retail nursery at Tree of Life, Casa La Paz. I think Mike might have met Dara through the International Plant Propagator Society. Another nurseryman, interestingly, all of these people who I will be referencing are nursery people, was Dave Frost, is Dave Frost. Dave is the owner of Native Sons Nursery in Arroyo Grande, an author of several books on California native plants. That I'm happy to have been a co-author on a couple of those. Dara was an inspiration and mentor to me. In 1978, he generously agreed to meet with me to discuss an idea I had for a nursery. We spent a couple of hours on a bench under the coast live oak below the SBBG meadow. He was kind, gently critical, and encouraging. As that nursery, Native Sons, developed, he helped us with propagation advice, gave us many new selections, and made suggestions of plants to try. He was always encouraging, generous with his time, and willing to listen. And then the second paragraph, which I won't read verbatim, mentions a surprise that Dave became aware of after Dara died. A friend of his, it turned out, also knew Dara. And he, as a boy, he got to know Dara very well when Dara was dating his mother. And this was a surprise to me as well. I didn't really know all that much about Dara's personal life while working with him for so many years, other than that he was a deeply religious man, a strict vegetarian, and someone who loved to follow the stock market. So non-horticultural things about Dara to share. This is, I think, Dave, the evening that he was going to give the Dar Emery Memorial Lecture, doing some shopping at the nursery. Another nurseryman that I also was fortunate to meet through my connection with Dara and the Botanic Garden was Nevin Smith, here delivering some plants in the early 80s for our fall plant sale at the time when he was running his wintergreen nursery. And later on, he became the director of horticulture in charge of nursery operations at Suncrest Wholesale Nursery. Both of those are up in Watsonville. I remember Dara as a great friend who asked for little and gave much. In an increasingly competitive and aggressive world, he was a refreshing reminder of how much can be accomplished through gentle persuasion. I think of Dara even more as a gentle force in my own life and the lives of many other people who were developing a passion for California's native plants. He showed me new ways of using natives in the garden and in larger landscapes. His work with plant selection and hybridizing was an inspiration to me and helped direct me onto my own paths with the lilies, iris, and other showy natives. These were some of the most enjoyable pursuits in my life as a horticulturist. And then last but not least, a few images that actually were provided to me for this presentation by Randy Baldwin when I asked him if he would like to share some memories about Dara. He included this photograph of a massive specimen of Xanthorrhea at the former Franceschi home and nursery and now park in Santa Barbara. And when he had told Dara that he was interested in this genus, Dara generously shared with him seeds from the International Seed Exchange Program of many different species of Xanthorrhea so that Randy could grow these at San Marcos Growers Nursery, where he is the president and general manager. And I'm sure that the offspring of some of those plants have been sold through the nursery over the years. Randy also mentioned that he was very proud to have a signed copy of Dara's book in his own personal library. You can see the book plate here. And that Dara gifted him his own personal collection of copies of the International Plant Propagator Society Journal when he retired from the Botanic Garden. So that leads me on to talk about Dara's work as plant breeder. When I joined the garden, he was able to devote his energy exclusively to being the plant breeder for SBBG, work that he had dabbled in over the years, but now was able to concentrate on 100%. And here's I love this photo of him at the nursery, standing next to some of his many coral bells, the genus Heuchera introductions that he made. There were 9 in total. Here is the list of all of the plants that Dara was responsible for introducing. Some of these were the result of his breeding work. Others were selections that he made either from the wild or plants that he grew at the nursery that other people had selected, that had brought him to propagate. And then he realized had some horticultural merit. He had a very keen eye for garden-worthy plants. And so without formalizing the plant introduction program, he was all along introducing some of these plants through the Botanic Garden. Here's a great old photo with no date of some of the breeding work with his lupin seed strain. There's a close-up of one of those popular heucheras. Canyon Delight was one of the first generation, still in production today, still very popular. He was aiming for more compact, smaller leafed plants, but with still equally beautiful flower stalks. And after he passed away, he had been working on Eucharist still. And we decided to select several that we thought were really quite wonderful and name them posthumously. We called them the Canyon Quartet series, and all 4 are in this wheelbarrow, and we gave them musical names. Another plant that Dara bred many years before he passed away and decided not to pursue, I thought that that was a mistake. And so we still had it in the garden and propagated it and distributed it to other nurseries and gave it a name in his honor. And it's a wonderful low sprawling ground cover that is distinct from some of the other mounding cultivars in the trade, with glossy leaves and more golden yellow flowers. Probably his most famous introduction is this iris selection that he made from a batch of seed that he acquired from the American Rock Garden Society. Iris Canyon Snow is the most widely grown of all the Pacific Coast hybrid irises. It won a national award because it's such a tough, beautiful, durable plant, very deserving of all of the accolades that it has gotten. Elamis condensatus grows on both the mainland and the Channel Islands, and there was this blue-leafed form that Ralph Philbrick, former director of the Botanic Garden, brought back for Dara to propagate, and he felt that this was a plant that deserved some recognition, and the name Canyon Prince was assigned, and now it's one of the most popular and widely grown of our native bunch grasses. Here it is at the Nature Gardens at the Natural History Museum. Another plant that honors Dara by name, I think that Nevin actually was responsible for naming this. I have to double check that with him. But it's a hybrid of creeping and black sage that Dara grew from seeds that he collected off of a creeping sage that was actually labeled as such in the Botanic Garden. And the seeds must have been open pollinated because they bear characteristics of both of these two parent species. It's a nice blue flowered hybrid of these two and very low in stature. Dara also grew some seed that was originally collected from Monterey County, and one of the individuals turned out to have these beautiful pink flowers as opposed to the typical more white blushed with just highlights of pink. I believe this plant is still not the one in the photograph, but another one is still growing at the Botanic Garden. And it too was given a cultivar name because of those beautiful flowers. Unfortunately, it has to be propagated by grafting, and so it's very hard to come by. I keep hoping that somebody will pursue trying to grow this from tissue culture because it is really quite an exceptionally beautiful plant.
It is, it's a beautiful, beautiful plant.
There are a few more here. I realize I'm running out of time. I'll just go through the manzanita. There were a couple of manzanitas he named and introduced. Wheeler Canyon, which is very similar to Concha that's in the trade. And then these last couple images, Dara still signing copies of his book in his later years. And on the right, shown in the Botanic Garden, he's being interviewed for an oral history that is available through, I believe it's available through the Botanic Garden. So if you would like to pursue learning more about this extraordinary man and all his many accomplishments, I encourage you to contact Randy Wright at the Botanic Garden, who helped me in tracking down some of these images. And just to wrap up, there's a list of just some of the many contributions that Dara has made to California horticulture, and not, I should say, exclusively native plants. He was interested in a lot of other groups of plants, but primarily known for his native plant work. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Carol. And if anyone has any questions about Dara, at the end of the presentations, we are going to have all of our speakers back on to answer those questions, okay? So thank you. I'm going to bring on our next set of speakers. We have Stephen. And we have Matt. All right, Carol, I'm going to send you back to the attendees. Thank you again. We'll have you on in just a moment.
There's Matt. Hello, Matt.
And Steven, what's up, guys? Matt, we don't hear you. Let me see if I can unmute you.
Yeah, there we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect.
All right, let me share the screen. Or I need to hit the share screen button. Is that right?
Yes.
You don't have to. I'm not sharing anything. So he's going to this thing, so he's showing what's on the front button.
All right. Wonderful, Matt.
You
That one?
should all see just a picture, a Denis Kurutz picture.
Wow.
All right, Stephen, you could go ahead and I'll just scroll through some of these while you're talking and then jump in.
Thank you
when
very
you're
much. I'm Stephen Armeni. I'm a landscape architect, a member of Southern California Hort. And I met Denis in 1963 in Los Angeles at USC's Architectural School, where Professor Emmett Wimple had a landscape architectural consulting office, and Denis was drawing intricate plans and drawings for Emmett. Denis was born in Cleveland on May 30th, 1941. His parents were artists. Denis was educated as an architect, but from the beginning, his love of nature and plants focused his life work on enhancing the natural environment. Denis, with Peter Brandow and Peter Miles, all trained in architecture, staffed the office of Emmett L. Wimple and Associates. I joined the firm in 1973 and learned on the job working under Emmett with Denis as the lead designer. I was awed by Denis's drawing ability and his seemingly immense knowledge of plants, and learned quickly that drawing was not the main goal of our office, but getting projects built. Denis was a great draftsman, but also an amazing builder, and a man who easily channeled nature in his designs, as seen in the stream bed that you just saw. Emmett Wimple was our mentor, father confessor, and had an amazing confidence in us and allowed each one person in the office to assume complicated, ever larger and complex projects. Design with a capital D was the emphasis of the office. The work was demanding, but always fun and whimsical. I observed and tried to emulate Denis's focus on details and experienced how projects became reality from sketches to finished installations. We are focusing the presentation of Denis's work on the Getty Villa due to time constraints. When I started working in 1973, the landscape installation of the villa was just being completed. I remember ever repeated trips to nurseries throughout Southern California looking for various plants and specimen trees. The Getty Villa was followed in quick succession with the work at Magic Mountain, Knott's Berry Farm, the Mall of America, the master planning of the regional Bonelli Park, large residences, and major high-density housing projects in downtown Los Angeles. Denis handled these various jobs with obsessive compulsion, and there were far too many all-nighters to make the deadlines. I left Emmett's office in 1979, starting my own consulting firm. Denis left a few years later. Now I turn the podium over to Matt Cornfield, who worked with Denis's office and continues today the tradition of excellence many years after Denis's passing. Matt, take it away.
Thank you, Stephen. And thank you to the Southern California Horticultural Society for calling attention to Denis's contributions in this field. I had the good fortune and pleasure to work with Denis in the last couple of years of his life. while the construction phase of the Getty Villa renovation was getting underway. I will share with you some of his drawings as well as some of the photographs of his work. This is the inner peristyle garden at the villa. The Getty was modeled after the Villa de Papyri in Herculaneum, Italy, on the Bay of Naples, just below Mount Vesuvius. Denis was the lead designer of these gardens while working at Emmett Wimple's office. These gardens have formal elements of clipped evergreen topiaries and hedges such as boxwood and Morris. This is the outer peristyle or main peristyle garden. Boxwood is a Roman plant and is one of the most important formal architectural landscape components in defining these gardens. Horticulturally, it posed a challenge to Denis. The Roman boxwood is Buxus sempervirens. This Mediterranean variety ultimately did not adapt well to the seaside environment in Malibu. Several years after the initial plantings of boxwood, Denis decided to replace it with Buxus japonica. And as you can see here, it thrives in this environment. And those are Stephen's daughters, I am told. These gardens have seasonal accents throughout, with unifying ground cover plantings to tie larger areas together. This is Iris germanica in the ground cover of woolly thyme. This planter surrounds the long central pool and is bordered with the Buxus. Denis included many flowering perennials in his designs. The villa gardens are tremendously intricate horticulturally, but Denis was also involved with the designs of the hardscape elements. This is the genius of Denis L. Kurutz, his expertise with both architectural and horticultural design. Denis was an outdoorsman with a deep love of nature. This circular bench in the lower left-hand corner of this photo was made of cast stone detailing with a floral mosaic and was created by Denis while working at Emmett Wimple's office. It was based on this paving excavated from the ashes of Mount Vesuvius. Using the ancient example, Denis drew up the feature we see today. You can see how closely the finished product follows this drawing. This was his gift, his ability to visualize and articulate through drawings and writing what was to be built. Here's Denis at the Bay of Naples with Richard Naranjo and Michael DeHart. This was a research trip to Italy around 1990 associated with the Villa renovation project. Michael is still with the Getty and is the Getty Grounds and Gardens horticulturist. Richard was the manager of the Villa Grounds and Gardens. Richard was an amazing gardener who had been Denis's boots on the ground at the villa since its initial construction. He and Denis were great friends, and Richard was invaluable to us in implementing Denis's work at the villa. Denis's designs were full of detail and complexity. Here you can see narcissus blooming at the same planter we saw earlier with German iris and woolly thyme. Visiting at different times, the gardens will have various seasonal aspects. This is the original garden planting plan from 1972. This was drawn by Denis. The level of detail is incredible. Note the sketches showing the clipped forms in the middle of the drawing. I don't know if you can see my cursor, they're here. The garden is also a mirror image down the center axis. Denis took the liberty of showing the plan as an illustrative drawing on the west side, which is the top side, and a technical planting plan on the east side. This is a horticultural example of how his drawings illustrated both design intent and technical information. This garden scene fresco from Pompeii is an example of what Denis used to identify historical plants and to compile his plant palette for the inner peristyle, outer peristyle, the herb garden, and the east garden at the villa. Denis compiled detailed plant lists for each garden at the villa. This one is the herb garden. Notice the level of detail from the literary source and the historical accuracy to the adaptation of Malibu climate. Denis's work was always detailed, whether it be a perspective rendering like these two, or a vignette of a grape arbor post to beam connection. The details were where he toiled. He sourced Italian chestnut for the grape arbor at the herb garden. We used willow withies as false straps to hide the stainless steel connections. And this is the final product. You can see just how important a role Denis's sketching played in preparing construction documents. When you're out in the field working through things with the contractor, having these crystal clear depictions of the final product is invaluable. Denis's drawings were well informed by his research and knowledge. This is a sketch he did for the date palms in the outer peristyle. The palm is sitting directly on the structural roof slab of the parking below. We would just add notes and dimensions to create a construction detail. That concrete roof deck of the parking structure is only 30 inches below this walkway. You can see the date palms on the immediate right and across the pool. Horticultural features adorn architectural elements, especially in gardens. This is one of the columns in the main peristyle with acanthus leaf details. Acanthus was one of Denis's mainstays throughout the gardens. In Denis's other work, he loved to incorporate plants and natural elements. This is a entry gate at a winery up in Napa Valley. Of course, he would make sure that to describe all the details. He was eminently thorough. This level of detail ensured a beautiful finished product. This sketch was given directly to the ironsmith. The pieces produced were virtually identical. This is the central water feature in the East Garden at the Getty Villa, just off the inner peristyle. Denis loved aquatic plants. His list of species for the villa's many water features was extensive. Trees as architectural elements were foundational pieces in his garden designs. There he is in the red shirt and the hat, leaning on a handrail that he helped design, planting a magnificent Phoenix reclinata in San Diego. He's right there. Here's the plant a couple of weeks later when we revisited the site. Every single mature tree you see in this photo, this is the outdoor theater at the Getty Villa, was located by Denis. All were represented in his plans. These trees had been part of the original Villa garden landscape prior to the renovation and were boxed up under Denis's supervision. Several hundred trees were inventoried, boxed, stored, and then relocated to create this magnificent backdrop to the outdoor theater. Here you can see the effort it took to move these trees. This is a 184-inch boxed Italian stone pine on a 200-ton crane, boxed, stored, and replanted under Denis's watchful eye. And I'm going to leave on this slide. I think that this slide really shows the character of Denis. It shows a horticultural element in the foreground, and it shows an architectural element in the background. I really thank you guys for recognizing Denis's horticultural talents. They were immense, and his career was so fruitful. It's been an honor sharing this work with you guys. And I'm sorry I'm a little early.
That's perfect, Matt. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. And thank you to Denis's family as well for sharing all these photos with us.
Yes, thank you.
So if you guys have any questions about Denis, again, wait until the very end. I'm going to bring back all of our speakers and then we can answer any of those questions. Okay, so next I'm going to bring Lily Singer up and we will have a presentation about the singers. So let me go ahead and do that. And Matt and Stephen, I'm going to send you guys back to the attendees, okay?
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, apologies for that, guys. I think everyone can hear me. Let me get back on. Let me get Lily over here. Lily, are you there? All right, let's see if. Okay, here we go. All right, Lily should be rejoining us. Lily, are you there? I'll give her a moment. Lily, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
All right. Yes, I can hear you.
Hey,
All right,
Nick.
wonderful. I know, hooray!
Hi, Nick Stadden.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen
Okay.
and we'll get started.
You know, by the time we figure this all out, we won't have to do these things anymore.
Yeah. All right, Lily, take it away.
Okay. My name is Lily Singer. I am a member of the Southern California Horticultural Society Board. And although Carol forgot to mention it, Carol Bornstein is an awardee. She is a Horticulturist of the Year award. And I received this award in 1997. So it's kind of cool that mom and dad are getting it now. And I do want to say this isn't the first occasion of family members. Hugh Evans was awarded, Evans and Reeves Nursery, received the award sometime before 1960. And then Morgan Bill Evans, who was the main landscaper for Disney, he received it sometime in the 80s, I think. So there are two occasions. Anyway, I am honored to talk a little bit about my parents today. They got me started, but most importantly, they made a wonderful contribution to Southern California horticulture. Singer's Growing Things is the name of their nursery. So Manny and Bert Singer met at age 16 in Los Angeles. They were married they were married 6 years later when they were 22, and this is their wedding picture from 1942. Papa was in the Army. Let's flip to the next slide, Erin. So what happened was, that was 1942. 8 years, about 8 years, 8.5 years later, and 2 children. They, like many others, bought a house on the VA loan out in the San Fernando Valley, and we moved from Boyle Heights out to Reseda. I don't have any pictures of the nursery in Reseda. I'm sure we have some, but I was unable to find them for this program. But here's the house, and middle is before we moved in. We moved in, I think, March of 1951. And so there's the front of the house, right next to Victory Boulevard on a little cul-de-sac in Reseda. And then there's Dad in the backyard with my little head. And just to show you that on 1/6 of an acre, they eventually, after vegetables and chickens and an aviary and a goat and I don't know, all kinds of stuff, I ended up with a greenhouse in the backyard. And that's where the first business was established. And packing and shipping was in the garage, and making mix was on the side. And you know, all this was happening. It was pretty amazing. And there's me at age 5. We had always, from earlier pictures as well, with me in them too, a little cactus garden out in the front yard. And I drove by yesterday, right about where my head is. There is a Caricia speciosa, a Ceiba speciosa silk floss tree that my dad planted, and it's still there, and it was in flower yesterday, which is kind of neat. And the new homeowners planted another one in the parking strip, which was kind of nice. So this was the house in Reseda where they played in the backyard, and they had many eclectic interests, everything from rock hounding to traveling around. Every year we would pile up in a truck and go camping up in Northern California. And they both loved to garden. So eventually my parents were involved in the LA Cactus and Succulent Society, which met out in the Valley. My dad ended up being president for 3 years, and the Cactus and Succulent Society of America, plus the Orchid Society, the Bamboo Society, the Palm Society. My dad co-founded the Bromeliad Society in the San Fernando Valley. You get the idea. Now, again, these people were not trained botanists. They had no botanical background. My mother was trained in sociology and ended up being the cultural director for the Jewish Home for the Aging. And my father, who never graduated high school and hated working for other people, worked as a mechanical engineer and did many other things after the war, and worked at an art gallery. And eventually in around 1965 or 66, he threw away his ties. He stopped working for Burroughs Corporation and decided he wanted to be in business. At first he was going to do tropical fish. I'm not sure what happened to that project. And then after traveling to mainland Mexico and down into the tropics, he decided he was going to grow orchids and bromeliads. That proved to be difficult because it takes a lot of water to grow orchids in the middle of the San Fernando Valley. He did stay with a lot of bromeliads though. Eventually he had made, I think we can go to the next slide, Erin. I hate sitting on slides this long. Yeah, good. So eventually through people in the LA Cactus and Succulent Society and others that he met, he ended up going down to Baja California, and that is Catavina on the left, which is the most amazing part of the peninsula. In the middle is a beautiful pharaoh cactus that my dad took a picture of. On the right, for those who might remember, that's Gene Woodbury down in Baja with my dad in his truck, and I'm not sure who the other person is in this picture, with what I think looks like a Pachycormus discolor. Anyway, they went down to Baja, and I think between going to Baja and seeing the wonderful plants of the Sonoran Desert and the Mediterranean region in there, and et cetera, and then learning about all the wonderful succulents from South Africa through the cactus and succulent people, he decided that what he wanted to do was grow succulents. And he focused on rare and unusual succulents, primarily from Baja California, and then also South Africa and Madagascar. So meanwhile, Mom is working at the cultural, as the cultural director at the Jewish Home. And, I really want to give a shout out to her because although my father was, his face was more forward in terms of nursery work and people coming and talking plants, my mother made sure that the business was running okay. She also knew the names of all the plants and could pot them up and do all those other things too. But she did all of this and took care of the books and everything like that, while she was also working full time and making dinner and doing the dishes. So, hats off to the women doing 2 jobs. So anyway, all that aside, mom did good. She was an equal partner in this. So let's see what I wanted to tell you what else. So here we are in Baja. That's what really influenced them. And the next slide, please, Erin. And another great influence was Charlie Glass, who he and Bob Foster wrote the book here, which was one of my early, oh my God, I love this book. And Charlie and Bob were editors of Cactus and Succulent Journal. They were also owners of Abbey Garden and Abbey Garden Press. They were remarkable people, and especially Charlie was very, very close to both of my parents. And they were shell people, so they shared a lot of fun stuff. There's Charlie down in Mexico, where he settled near San Miguel de Allende. But Charlie Glass, I think, really was the biggest influence on my parents and my dad in terms of plants. Another great mentor was Paul Hutchison, who also received this award from the Hort Society. He was the owner of Tropic World Nursery and a botanist with the University of California for 50 years. And I think he really encouraged my dad in propagation information and also just, to push along and go ahead and try and make it as a nursery. Next slide. Okay, so we've been established for a while, and in 1978, my parents sold the little property in Reseda, and they paid cash for 3/4 of an acre in Northridge, California, near Cal State Northridge. And this was going to be the big place, and it was. And my dad was having a ball, planting more than he could at the other place. So over on the left, that's one of the piles where stuff for making mix was, that corrugated area on the left. And there's Mom and Dad and Newly, little Jack Russell Terrier. And then there's a shot of inside the greenhouse. And then I like this shot from the back. I'm sorry, I don't have better pictures. I'm sure they're around. I got to find them. This is a shot of the greenhouse. It was a 6,000 square foot greenhouse divided into two. One side was propagation, the other side was sales and display. And it was really, really amazing. And my father loved propagating. He loved the wonder of those little seedlings germinating and what they looked like, and taking a cutting from something and having it root in 36 hours. And he had a 60-foot long propagation bed with bottom heat, and he could do remarkable things. So lots of propagation. I will say that at first, when the business was young, and including part of the time that I worked with them, that we did traveling down to Baja, and we collected plants from the wild and we brought them back. We had permits to do it, but still we were taking a lot of stuff from the wild. And my father was importing and getting stuff from all of his wonderful luminary friends in Africa and Madagascar. Same thing, we were getting a lot of stuff from the wild at that point at the beginning. And then it became obvious that that wasn't a smart thing for the planet. And there was a concerted effort made to grow things by divisions, by seed, ethically collected seed, and for people who were growing plants from ethically collected seed. So the business really turned, and it worked out fine. Even doing the right thing, it worked out fine. But propagation was a wonderful thing. And my dad was also a member of the International Plant Propagators Association, which he loved. Over on the right is the interior of one of the greenhouses. And let me see what else I wanted to tell you. I think that's it. Go ahead. Aaron is my captain today, my pilot. So in addition to plants, my parents really appreciated the arts. And at one point they commissioned Royce Wood, a very fine up and coming young botanical artist who had done work with the Cactus and Succulent Journal. And they commissioned him to do 8 drawings of different plants from their nursery. And there's the cover with the Dioscorea, the turtleback on the left. They're really exquisite drawings. There were 500 folios done, all signed and numbered by Royce. And I'm just going to tell you, this is my little promo piece. Next year, when we all get together for a regulation Horticulturist of the Year Awards banquet, and we have a silent auction, there will be a folio on the table, and you can bid on it and go home with one of these. And they really are amazing. Over on the right is Euphorbia misera, just about my favorite and my dad's favorite plant. It's a wonderful little succulent shrub from Baja and very, very south end of California, actually. I'm from Baja. In the middle is cotyledon, phyllocodon. Oh my God, somebody help me. I can't hear anybody. It's been a long time since I've worked with these plants, and a lot of the names have changed, or I just don't remember them. Anyway, next, please. So in addition to work with Royce, for the life of the business, my parents put out catalogs. And everybody I talked to, they go, oh, do you still have some of the catalogs? The catalogs were filled with not only lists of everybody's dream collection, but wonderful information about each one, where it came from, and in some cases, cultural advice, et cetera, et cetera. But they were really great, and my parents used to laugh. It was Adansonia to Zamioculcas, Zamioculcas zamiofolia. That's what they call the ZZ plant now. Basically, my parents really loved plants, and they loved to have fun. So their plants, they, as I mentioned, we'd go out there and just like wonder at the little seedlings and their shapes. They loved the caudiciform plants and would associate them with animal shapes. So my mother had a little collection, a little zoo of caudiciforms. All of this stuff was really fun. And then there were the plant names. My father was a wonderful teacher. When he would tell somebody about a new plant, he would give them the botanical name. He would disassemble the names, so you knew what it was about, because every scientific name has a story, and it would help you remember. Then he would give you the white man, the Western common name, and poo-poo it. The only common names that he liked using, and he did use them, were the indigenous names, either from South Africa or from Baja in Mexico. And then he would tell you what family the plant was in. Was it in the daisy family, or the passion vine family, or the oleander family, and what it was used for by the indigenous people, and where it came from, and all this information would come out. It's pretty hard to forget a plant when you get to know it so well. So the plants they had their personalities, and I think that really came across. I want to read you something that's in the catalog, I found in the catalog. Interesting. So they're talking about general notes and taking care of the plants. Learning about your plants. Where they come from and under what conditions they grow in nature will help you determine their conditions and needs. As you walk among them, enjoy them and look closely. Your care and concern comprise tender, loving care. The TLC referred to so often is all a green thumb consists of. So, you know, look at the details and enjoy these little living things that you have. Next, please. So I want to tell you about a couple of people that were greatly influenced in their lives and their work, in addition to me. This is Jan Wittenberg. People often come up to me and say, oh, you know, I have this plant that I bought from your parents like in 1980 or something. You know, these can be very, very long-lived plants. So Jan Wittenberg is my oldest friend. He grew up in the house across the street in Reseda. And he hung out with my dad a lot in my dad's garage, in the nursery, and, you know, doing everything, rock hounding with him, and basically was influenced on many levels. And Jan grew up to be a very fine wood furniture designer. So here's what he said. He sent me this picture. Nobody wanted to send a picture of themselves, so I had to get a picture. And that's me in the back, little blondie thing. Anyway, here is a photo of a plant from Manny's collection. Manny and Bert's collection, it should be. Actually, only half of it. The other half is in another pot. Both are survivors of a rather unfortunate rotting incident some 20 years ago. A stroll around the yard turns up a lot of plants from Reseda and Northridge. A house-tall Bocarnia recurvata and an 8-inch Dioscorea elephantipes, both Singer seedlings. 2 other good-sized caudiciforms from Mexico. Wow, there are a bunch of them. Certainly, growing these plants is the longest lasting and most immersive of my many hobbies. Jan. And I actually remember this pot. So this is one of my parents' plants that Jan took over. Anyway, so that's a little about Jan and how all the things that my dad influenced him in and how the nursery turned him into a lifelong gardener. He is also very active in the LA Cactus and Succulent Club now. Jan. Next, please.
You got it, Lily. And it is amazing how long these plants can survive with that tender love and care that you talked about.
And you know, I was looking really closely at that picture, and you can see that half of that thing is like on the right side is, you know, has rotted out. You know, instead of being a column, it's a semicircle now. It's really cute, but it's still going. Yeah, they can live. They're at California Cactus in Pasadena. Molly, who's one of the 4 daughters there, she will take you in the back and show you the Phocaea edulis, which is in the passion vine family. She will show you a plant that came from my dad. There's male and female plants. You need one of each to get seed. And this is one that they had gotten from my dad to complement whatever gender their other one was. And the one, they have it marked that this plant is over 100 years old. It's very cool. Anyway, the other person I wanted to tell you about is Artie Chavez. He is the owner of Desert Creations, a nursery in Northridge. Over on the right is the front, that's the store. And behind it, you will see what looks a lot like Singer's Growing Things. It's pretty amazing with the plants and the quality and the way they're displayed and all the benches. By the way, in Northridge, there were tons of benches outside as well, with things that didn't need to be in a greenhouse, and a lot of seeds were grown outdoors. It was quite an operation. But back to Artie. So Artie is the owner of Desert Creations in Northridge. You should go visit him and support his nursery. He didn't want to send me a picture of himself, but he sent me a picture of part of his library. Artie started working with my father when he was 12 years old. Somehow he connected. And so he used to come over after school and work for my dad. And Artie told me, that he would go through the Singer's catalog and he would calculate which plants he wanted, including tax and how much that would come to. And then how many hours, and then he would figure out how many hours he needed to work to buy those plants. And so he would work that number of hours and my father would pay him, and then he would buy the plants with tax from my father. And so at one point my father said to him, that's it, you can't do this anymore. He said, for every $1 you spend on plants, you need to spend $1 on books. And that is part of the library that resulted from this advice my father gave him. Learning is a really important part of life, and that was impressed on all of us that were under his wing and working with him. and the discipline of doing it. Anyway, thanks to Jan and Artie for passing this stuff out. And if you want to learn some really great guerrilla outlaw propagation techniques that my father practiced, Artie was telling me a lot about them. I didn't remember. Go to Desert Creations and he'll tell you all about them. Next.
All right, and Lily, we're gonna go through these next slides so that we can get through to the Q&A as well, okay?
Okay, good. How long do I have?
Well, time is
what?
time is up.
Okay, I'll go real quickly. So this is a really great display that they did in the 70s, and it just shows their sense of humor. These were wonderful terraria that were built by John Rinaldi, who worked for my dad and now is a lavender farmer. But all these great caudiciforms displayed in and out of terraria and stuff. Anyway, fun. Next, now we're going to go to the plants, right? Yeah. So I'm not going to go over every plant that's here. I just wanted to give you an assortment. So members of the Euphorbiaceae, the Euphorbia or spurge family. So all but 2 of these are genus Euphorbia, and you can see the variation in form and color and how fun they are with these little fat bottoms and things you can do by raising them up in a pot. Over on the right are members of the family that aren't euphorbias. One is Jatropha integerrima, which is actually from the Caribbean, which has gorgeous flowers and a wonderful shrub for outside if you don't get a frost. And then on the right is Monodinium, and I think they've changed the name on the Monodiniums, but that's a whole other issue, which have these wonderful little monkswood flowers all year long. And I noticed in one catalog he had about 20 species of Monodinium. They're real cool. Next. The other thing that I said, they specialized in caudiciforms, and I know you could have better pictures of these, but these are their slides, and it was kind of cool. So the caudiciforms, things like on the far left and bottom right, these big swollen bases, and my father used to say an elephant sat on the one on the bottom right. And then things like Brachystelma, which is it has the star-shaped flowers top left. That thing, you know about Big Stinky over at the Huntington. This is a relative, well, no, it's not a relative of Big Stinky. Big Stinky's an aroid. This is actually a stapeliad, like the starfish flower. And boy, when it is blooming in your greenhouse, you will want to take it outside. Next, please. More caudiciforms, a succulent oxalis, pachypodiums from Madagascar, a succulent geranium, Pachycarmus from Baja. Haworthia is the little rounded rosette thing in the middle. They're real small, you can collect a lot. And then the last plant I'm going to tell you about on this slide, over at the bottom right is Welwitschia mirabilis, one of the rarest and most unusual plants on the planet. It grows only in the Namib Desert, now Namibia, next to South Africa. I'm pointing it out because my father said that one of his great life experiences was sleeping next to the Welwitchias. They went camping out there in the middle of the Namib, and can you imagine? This is a plant that only makes 2 leaves its entire life. It's a very cool thing. Next slide, Erin. I won't go too long on the plants. Then there are the Sansevierias, and these are great landscape plants. They're great indoor plants, and I think there must have been 50 of them in one catalog. And again, the wonder of them is the shapes and the forms and the infinite variety of colors. And I think that's what attracted my parents to this particular genus of plants. Anyway, they're really, really cool. So Sansevierias were a big thing, and they were pushing a lot of them. And that will take us to the next slide, which was a great honor that was bestowed upon singers. Randy mentions Manny in the description, but it really was both of them. And it's a new plant that was introduced from San Marcos growers by Randy Baldwin, Sansevieria trifasciata Singer's Silver. And the story is that the mother plant came to Randy through Juan Chihinian, who's a Sansevieria fancier and expert and author that worked with my dad. Anyway, it's a really beautiful plant. Use these outside. They are great landscape plants. I will always be encouraging you to do that. They can also grow in a closet. I mean, this is a fantastic plant. Next slide. I think that's it. Yes. So this is them on their 50th anniversary. You saw the wedding day. This is the 50th anniversary party, which I see actually was a day before the anniversary. And this is in their backyard. They loved all sorts of plants. And as you can see, I can see plumerias and Brunfelsias and all kinds of stuff in this picture. And my father dressed up and put on the only tie that he had saved when he quit working. Big 4-inch wide thing. So I want to thank you all for giving my parents this honor. They worked very hard to let people know about these wonderful plants. And thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And I'm going to bring all of our speakers back up real quick so that we can get the Q&A section going. Let's see. We have Carol again. We're bringing Matt back on. And then we'll have Stephen as well. All right, so if you have any questions, please feel free to ask in the Q&A section that's at the bottom of your screen.
Or at the top on an iPad.
Or yeah, if you're on an iPad. Let's see.
Can you actually put our
The
videos
video back on. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, because I have something I wanted to show people that I didn't have before.
All right, I'm gonna ask you all
Okay.
to start.
I am wearing one of my prized possessions. This was one of
Beautiful.
Dara's hats.
I love it.
So
Oh, that's fantastic.
yes, yeah. So I was very, very honored to be able to inherit two of his many hats. And
That's great.
for a while I pulled this one out and
It
wear it.
suits you.
It doesn't quite fit right, but anyway, I just thought it would be fun to share.
All right, well, we don't have any questions yet, so I don't know if anyone wants to make any last comments on their awardees or not. And
I have a
If not-
question. I have a
Go for
question
it.
for Stephen or Matt about Dennis. Where are all those beautiful drawings and illustrations? Where are they kept? If people wanted to look at them?
Man. This is a big deal because the family has most of them. Matt has a whole bunch. The Getty Museum actually has a lot of the Getty drawings. We need to reach out to the Getty and to USC and try to get an exhibit together. This
Yeah, those were just really extraordinary.
is the most beautiful things you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of them too. There's a lot of them out. I have something that'll tie all three of these people together. This is a book that I inherited from Denis Kurutz.
Oh, wow.
Look at that.
That is very cool.
He has, I'm still working in his office and we inherited his library. So he has an extensive library. And so that, I think that carefully ties all two of those other people or the
Yeah,
singers
that's
and
cool.
Dara together.
That's very cool.
My favorite Dennis story, he told me that he had gone away for a while and he came back to the villa and some gardeners, thinking that there wasn't enough color in the landscape, had planted a bunch of 1-gallon azaleas in full bloom. And he had to explain to them that that wasn't what they had in this Roman garden, you know. But,
I think I've heard
surprise.
that story.
well, I do have a comment here from the Kurtz family, and they just want to express an appreciation on behalf of the entire family for this presentation. So
It
thank
was
you,
beautiful,
gentlemen,
you
again. And we are getting some questions. Katrina also says they miss you, Matt.
Hi, Katrina. Hi, guys. I miss you too.
We have one, not a question, but it's from Stephen G. Lily, tell folks about your dad's bumper sticker.
I wanted you to do it. I was expecting you to do it. So my parents had some bumper stickers made. One of them was 99 euphorbias, count them, 99. And another one was pat my Codex. And apparently Steve saw that and thought it was the funniest thing he had ever seen and came to me and said, oh my God, there's this car out there with a bumper sticker that says pat my Codex. I said, yeah, that's my parents. So,
And Lily, we do, oh, I'm sorry, continue.
ooh, which Nikkei is this? Ooh.
Yeah, Nikkei wants to know if we can see the singer's catalog one more time, or
I was just trying to
be
figure
able-
out why my picture wasn't up here. What am I doing wrong? Switch to active speaker. No, I don't want to do that.
I just asked you to start your video.
Okay, I said okay. Ah,
There
we
you
go.
are.
There we go.
Okay, so what do you want? Here's catalog. So catalog, I don't know how well you can see this, with a close-up of Pachypodium, probably gayi spines, the thorns on it. And here's a nice page with pictures. Can't see. What would you like to see about the catalogs?
Well, Lily, would we be able to post them on social media so people can see the slide that we had?
Absolutely.
All right,
Yes.
Wonderful.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to. I like that.
Oh, Carol, we have another question for Dara over here. Carol, Dara gave me Lupinus Canyon Sunset, which I believe was a cross between the Russell lupines. Do you know which native and which native plant it was crossed with? These were stunning rainbow colors, huge flowers. Any idea if the seed is still around?
I think the Botanic Garden might have some seed, old seed in their seed library, their seed herbarium. Seed is tremendously long-lived. It might
Carol,
still
that
be
question,
viable.
Carol, the question is from Melanie Keeley, by the way.
Oh, hi, Melanie. I think one of the parents that he used was Lupinus polyphyllus. And actually one of the parents of Lupinus, the Russell hybrids, is actually another California native. I don't remember which species. It might've been latifolius. I have that information, and Melanie, I can get it to you. I just don't have it in my head. But anyway, I don't think anybody is commercially growing it. The last time it was sold, I believe, was Bodger seed many, many years ago. And we did grow out some of the old seed back in the 80s and planted it out in the meadow. Just when it was getting ready to flower, the gophers came and chewed the plants, just pulled them down. You could actually watch them pull them from below ground. So I think I only got to see one or two in bloom, but those that did make it were quite beautiful. Unfortunately, they needed a fair amount of water to be happy. So they weren't the most water thrifty plants.
All right, well, the next one is about Dennis. This is from Joni J. I really just want to say thank you for recognizing Dennis. Dennis inspired me to look closely, dream big, and draw. Thank you, Stephen. Do they have his fish series, halibut and the others?
I think the family has those, I think.
All right. Well, so I think these are all the comments that we have and the questions. So I do see a question about if tonight's recording will be on our YouTube, and yes, it will. So look out for that in the next couple of days. And you will also receive a Zoom email with that information. So thank you to everyone again who made it tonight. And thank you to all of our speakers as well for talking on behalf of the awardees who have made such an inspirational impact on California horticulture. And just as a reminder, for next month's meeting, we will have it at our regular Thursday time. So Thursday, October 8th at 7:30 p.m. It's actually a reschedule of growing Asian vegetables in Los Angeles with Florence Nishida. This is one that we had to cancel early in the year due to the pandemic. So we're super excited to have Florence with us. She's a master gardener and the founder of the nonprofit LA Green Grounds. So wait for that registration link so you can pre-register as well. All right. And thank you everyone again. Yeah, Lily?
I just want to thank you.
Oh, you got it.
So you're listening to Erin Castillo. She is our content manager for the Hort Society and coordinated all of this and wrangled all the speakers and everything together. And thanks, Erin.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you everyone for your participation and just for being great people.
It was fun.
Thank you. All the best. Bye-bye.
All the best, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Stay safe, stay healthy,
Bye.
stay green.
Bye.